Hello? Hi, yes. It's Alice Fraser here. Yes, of the last post. Yes, of the Bugle. Oh my god, yes, I would love to do a Bugle spin-off show. Yep. Yeah, it's that all waiting for Andy to retire, and that man is looking healthy. What would it sound like? Probably like the Bugle, but the good news. No, not the happy news, the interesting news. No offence to the news, but I am sick of making jokes about Brexit and about stupid politicians saying stupid shit to make stupid people angry. Like tech news and arts and fun stories about animals and like science and life advice and who's in style and Hollywood. Yes, I guess I can do celebrity news if I have to. Sure, I'll mention flamingos, but I won't be nice about them. Cool. So when does the first episode come out? I better get writing. Okay. And what's it called? The Gargle. The Gargle? The Gargle. Gargle. Alright, sure. The Bugle presents The Gargle with Alice Fraser.
The Bugle, audio newspaper for a visual world. Hello, Buglers, and welcome to issue 4183 of The Bugle, audio newspaper for a visual world. It is the 15th of February 2021. It's cold and wet, we've a Bugle to do, and here in the shed, I've switched off my cricket machine temporarily, just for you, Buglers. My 4am starts are not getting any easier. I'm also back from using my time machine. You wouldn't have noticed, obviously, but put it this way, count yourselves very, very lucky that you've not had to deal with the aftermath of the successful Harryhausen-Henson presidential ticket in 1976 that, formerly unleashed puppet hell on the USA and indeed the world. Joining me today, on my left, well, she's from Australia. I'm in South London facing west, so she's basically on my left. Alice Fraser.
Hello, Andy. Hello, Buglers. The Henson puppet ticket would be a problem. Here they got a finger in a lot of pies. And what they can do with those pies.
How's Australia? We've been. I was jealously watching some of the tennis the other day in Melbourne with actual crowds, and they sent them all home mid-session when they introduced a new lockdown. They made people leave in the middle of a match so they weren't contravening the midnight cut-off.
Look, Andy, it's really nice when these tiny little lockdowns happen because it makes it feel less embarrassing to talk about how we're doing as compared with you if we have the occasional glitch in our otherwise seamless luxury lifestyles.
That's very considerate of you. Those old bonds remain strong. And on my right, over there, if you're looking that way, which... Good audio this. Here in London, it's Tiffany Stevenson.
Hi. I'm very jelly of what Alice is getting up to.
Jelly?
It feels like trolling. Jelly.
Is that now an official shortening of jealous? How time
yes.
short
In
do you have to
Britain,
be?
they call it jam.
Right, of course. Sorry, my mistake.
Jammed with jealousy.
Yeah, very jelly shortening for jealous, envious. I don't know. I feel like Alice's Instagram is kind of trolling me, basically.
Right.
Any Australian people are trolling us right now with their pictures of beaches and going out.
I believe it was Destiny's Child lyric, I don't think you're ready for this jelly. Was that very much an adaptation of Shakespeare's Othello, the exploration of human jealousy? Interesting new take on it.
Yeah, I don't know whether jelly was like more. I always thought jelly in that sense was more about curves, but that is also quite Shakespearean.
Right. Okay, yeah, I guess so. This is Bugle 4183. By coincidence, 4183 is, according to a computer simulation run this week, the number of puppies that Donald Trump would have to drown in front of the average Republican senator, sequentially, one after the next, before that senator would acknowledge that maybe Trump is probably a puppy drowner. Now, I'm not saying it was a completely reliable computer simulation. I'm just putting it out there. We are recording on February the 15th, 2021, and making this the 50th anniversary of decimalisation in the UK, which came into full force 10 years ago, or 46 and a couple if you want to go that way. And that leads us to our section in the bin, which is a commemorative supplement of other British units decommissioned when we went decimal, along with the old currency. These units of British measurement decommissioned when decimalisation happened 50 years ago today included a frodage, which is a unit of liquid volume equivalent to a horse's first urination of the day. A frodage was used to sell flagons of horse-was, which were at the time used as a substitute varnish for church pews. A gammock, that was a unit of time, equating to 1/12 of a drouk, which was the average time it took King Edward I to get over a hangover caused specifically by drinking 2 cloggins of mead. The drouk was roughly 4 hours 15 minutes in today's time. A clogging, of course, being the volume of a large ox's bladder. A clinticule, that's an 18th of a clint, and a clint is a third of a pangellard, which of course was the average circumference of a monk's cassock, and it was of course illegal in the early days of the Church of England for a monk's dingle-dangle to exceed a single clinticule, which duly led to the compulsorisation of celibacy. A yowlard, that went as well, a standard unit of sound measurement, pre-decibel, equivalent to the noise of a screaming heretic being tortured on a rack. And a flound was the recommended distance people were advised to fling a rat during times of plague, which is approximately 30 to 40 metres in today's distances, depending on the wind.
Well, Andy,
Yes.
actually, the horse urine is why they were called pews in the first place.
I'm loving all this decimal chat. You make a great point.
Oh.
Decimal points. Come on, guys. Come on. Also, so the monks, I think they made up for
tens.
Yay.
Tens.
What have I done? What have I done?
The monks, I think the monks, to make up for their lack of, you know how they were celibate, I think to make up for that they used to try and dress like slutty. Do you think there were monks that would wear their belt really low on their hips to say, if I could, I would be up for it?
Oh, that's quite an interesting. I mean, there must have been research done into that. You know, the raciest monk garments in ecclesiastical history. If you are a monk and you like to flaunt it, do write in and tell us the best way to wear a cassock seductively. That section in the bin. Top story this week, chaos in France. Well, I mean, there has been a tragic setback for France as a nation, a tragic setback indeed for, national stereotyping the world over, because France has abandoned everything that makes it special, everything that it stands for, everything the French Revolution was about, and it has legalised the eating of lunch at your desk. I mean, the end of the elongated French lunch is surely yet another staging post, Tiff and Alice, on the decline of humanity as the world's leading species.
Zut alors, Andy. Can I just get that out of the way first? Go for it, Alice.
Well, I mean, it's not just legalised, but it's been recommended in a revised labour protocol that has banned French workers from their common areas for lunchtime. I mean, this next thing you know, they'll be embracing pre-sliced bread and monogamy, Andy. This is so un-French that I think it's actually very good. I think it's a good move for the French. It must be exhausting for them to constantly be having 3-hour-long wine-filled convivial lunches on picnic rugs by the Seine. Now, at last, they can get their emails done while choking down a wet baguette from Pret like the rest of the world. It was a Frenchman, Andy, who wrote "Hell is other people," and he wrote that at his desk at lunch.
Jean-Paul Sartre's list of office complaints.
It was a real stickler for paperclips, old Sartre. I mean, as you say, I mean, you know, the pillars of French society are falling, you know, one by one. I mean, soon they'll be playing ruthlessly efficient, safe percentage rugby. I mean, it's heading that way in some ways, and cycling for on occasion less than 3 weeks at a time. So I mean, will we still recognise France for what it is, Tiff? Or, I mean, is this?
I know.
End?
I mean, I love the French for their attitude towards that. You know, it's the country of l'amour, and they love to eat out.
Yep.
Hey.
And I don't need to add anything to that. But I kind of like, I saw in Emily in Paris was how, I mean, I've been in France. My grandmother was like half French. So I have like French family. And that kind of like the first episode of Emily in Paris, and they went mad about the stereotypes, but she didn't get invited out to lunch. And it was such a big thing because everyone's out enjoying themselves. And the French have described this move as having to sit at your desk and have a sad desk salad. Like, c'est très triste. It's so sad. You and your little salad. And they've banned moments of conviviality. That's how they described it. Alice said the word earlier, which I love that because, you know, it's so French. It's like making a coffee and it sounds like fun socialising. And that's not my experience of being in an office. When I worked in the office, those moments were mainly complaining about the biscuits and pervy Doug in accounts staring at your tits again. They weren't really moments of conviviality. I like the French's attitude towards like enjoying life.
So this has been brought about by the many and varied impacts of COVID. So it is now legal for French workers to stay in their office for lunch, or as it is known in France, lunch, and they're allowed now to eat at their desks, or as they're known in France, les tableaux laborieux de utilitarianisme optimal pour la poursuivance de toutes les artifices et compétences de l'administration des travail pécuniaire et de la maintenance des office equipment pendant toutes les heures, et donc ainsi bien sûr aussi tous les journaux professionnels. The previous punishment for eating lunch at your desk, I think it was 10 years in jail, which is what we're now giving for most crimes these days here in Britain. It's something we may touch on later in the show. Also a 6-month ban on wearing berets, and more tellingly, the grave punishment of missing out on sitting for 3 hours eating Croesus-rich food that can sit you down for a week. I mean, it is such a... I mean, obviously, my experience of France is at best touristically superficial. But I think my favourite French lunch moment. I went there many years ago with my wife for I think it was an anniversary trip, and we had lunch in a stupidly ridiculous French restaurant where there was some confusion amongst the waiting staff as they brought out a little tray with some chocolates on to go with our coffee at the end of the meal, and this guy brought a tray out and he just stood there with this panicked look in his eye and just standing there with these chocolates on a tray, and then he was kind of looking around, and so rather than just putting the tray down or asking us to take the chocolates off, he had to wait for another waiter to come and remove the chocolates with tongs to then put them on a little plate. That was how formal the waiting was in that. I mean, that was, I think, the most French moment I've ever experienced. How
does everyone there not have gout like all the time? I went to Cannes to it was for a corporate gig. This was a few years ago, and Paul and I every day just ate saucisson, cheese, drank red wine, and watch people walk past with Pomeranians in baby papooses. It's the weirdest. The French lifestyle, and you can't criticise them on it because they don't care, and they're like, you're English, so you're embarrassing. That's the attitude. This is how confident French people are as well, that on the streets there were condom machines. On the street, you could go to a condom vending machine. That is how confident French people are that they're going to get laid at any moment. They need access to a street condom. And I, for one, I'm impressed by that. I aspire to that level of confidence and enjoyment of life. And I wish we had a law here that banned a sad desk salad from Pret. I wish we had that law.
Yeah. But Pret, of course, ironically, a chain of French named it's basically they provide adequate sandwiches and other forms of edible ambivalence. And I think it's a French term, pret à manger, which I think means ready to give birth to a Messiah child, and whatever piece of agricultural equipment is currently available at the inn. Alice, do you think this could prove decisive in the 2022 French presidential election, that under Macron's stewardship, they've basically stolen lunch from out of French bouches. I mean, that's a pretty risky play from his point of view, isn't it?
I mean, almost certainly this will cause chaos in the streets, but because they're not allowed to leave their desks, it will be chaos at their desks.
Desk-bound chaos. That's something that is unique to our times, I think.
Putting on some real aggressive filters.
Spelling out the words liberty, fraternité, égalité in bread rolls on the roof as a form of protest.
But it is still unclear how it's going to go down with French workers. I imagine they'll be getting very cross about it. I have a French friend of mine is particularly angry. He rang me up the other day. He said, I like duck à l'orange for my lunch, but in the modern work world, and the time available for lunch breaks, I can hardly get out for lunch and back in time. And he said that my boss is always there waiting to gloat over any slip-ups I make in the afternoon after a boozy lunch. As soon as I make a mistake, ta-ta, he says. And, my friend also said that he said, I like to have two pairs of two dumpling-type things, but I'm not allowed that anymore. Fork and L. But what a pile of crepes, he continued. But I cannot be any clearer about this.
Mainly Chris's face at this point.
We've got to keep moving forward. He said, we've got a poisson, but we are best out of this. Even if it has taught us a valuable lesson, we have to get over it. And anyway, with the lack of time to, he was very worried about the lack of time to have a proper cheese course as well. He said, I come on, bear it. They should be reasonable and come to their senses. It could backfire as well. He said they've made a rock for their own back. He also complained that the police turned up when him and his girlfriend were having lunch not at their desk. And he said they tried to arrest my mistress. He said, I said, leave her out of this. It's not a price worth paying.
Andy, this is too early. I didn't know why you wanted to do this story first, and now it's abundantly obvious.
I in fact had to have lunch with him the other day. I could tell he was upset because I tried to get his attention by gently hitting him on the shoulder with my fingers, but he didn't react even though I was tapping hard. And to be honest, I mean, you could see how upset he was. He's very French, but he barely even flirted with the very shapely waitress. So he didn't even look at her rack, let alone chat her up. Anyway, but it'd be interesting to see. It could swing the French presidential election towards the right-wing Front National. I can see Nigel Farage getting involved, trying to add his weight behind the campaign. I imagine he'll be driving around France in a little truck and will become known as the Coco Van. Right. I'm done here.
I always thought Coco Van was sex in the back of a transit, Andy.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it's just Nigel Farage in a van.
Andy, you made a real meal out of that, but I made a meal for you.
Very good. Is it time to move on to other lunch news? I think it probably is. Joe Biden has issued a striking warning to America about the challenges that lie ahead with regard to its relationship with China. Now, amongst the myriad things in Joe Biden's in tray as he takes over control of the raging rhinoceros that is America, after the previous rider of that rhinoceros had kneecapped it, sold its horns on the black market and told it that it was a walrus. Dealing with China could be one of the toughest things he's facing. And he had his first telephone chinwag with the Chinese leader Xi Jinping last week. They nattered on like a pair of teenagers about all kinds of silly stuff, like the future relationship between the world's two most powerful nations, the environment and shit like that, and the best noodle dish to eat seductively on a date. And to show the US public exactly how tricky this is going to be, Biden spoke to them in the only language that can possibly penetrate to enough of the US electorate. He told them that China will eat America's lunch. Now that's surely is one way. We talk about the difficulty of communicating with all sides of the political spectrum. This shows, Biden is reaching out. He's talking to America in terms that surely all Americans can understand. The stealing of lunch.
The problem, of course, is that China doesn't need to eat the US's lunch. They have child slave labour and Uyghur work camps to make all the lunch they need, and in fact, much of the lunch that the US is buying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I'd respond if the Chinese Communist Party threatened to eat my lunch. I think I'd probably get straight down to the kiln and start firing an absolute motherload of terracotta warriors to defend my num-nums, and I expect America to do the same. But, I guess, when it comes to the whole issue, thinking about exactly what China has planned for the world is one of those things that makes many people in the traditional Western powers understandably decide not to spend any time thinking about exactly what China has planned for the world. It cannot possibly end well. Other food news now. The World Health Organization has suggested that coronavirus, the celebrity virus that you've probably heard of over the last year or so, could have come from frozen food. As Oscar Wilde said, there is no more terrible beast than a wronged fish finger. And this. Alice, I know that you've been, keeping a very close eye on all the conspiracy theories surrounding COVID. But this is. Is this the least exciting one we've had yet? We had, rogue pangolins, biological warfare by a pseudo-communist superpower. We've had Bill Gates implanting special little robots in people's eyeballs or whatever it is. But now we could just be looking at the revenge of the nugget.
Well, so Andy, this is the least exciting option, except for the Chinese state media. So this idea that it was sort of carried inside or on the surface of some frozen food was put forward with a number of other scenarios that are much more likely by a joint World Health Organization and Chinese investigation. And Chinese state media were like, it's definitely this one. The reason they love the story of it possibly being from frozen food is that it could place the source of the virus outside of China, from an animal imported from another country, even though it's very unlikely the Chinese state media loves bad things not being China's fault. That's their favourite thing, apart from denying workplace human rights abuses and talking about how buff Xi Jinping is. Look, I don't really give a where the virus came from. At this point, none of us are ever travelling internationally anywhere ever again, and I can be mean about Xi Jinping. I'm never going to visit China. Suck my dick, Xi Jinping.
That's your new spin-off podcast, isn't it? To go along with the forthcoming The Gargle with Alice Fraser from the Bugle stable. Suck my dick, Xi Jinping.
I hope it's not frozen food. I hope it didn't come through frozen food, because that'll be why mums won't go to Iceland. And I just don't think they can afford to take the hit right now. That is Iceland, the supermarket chain, not the country, obviously. Mums do go to Iceland because the football players from there are incredibly fit. So
and also very well organised, to be fair, Tiff, as well. Obviously, that's really how they've managed to have so much success on the. Not just their fitness that you've correctly pointed out, but really the team structure's been highly efficient as well.
Yes, stop me objectifying men, Andy. I think that's a good way for this podcast. I don't want to go down that route too early. But obviously, it's been spoken about it being a zoonotic disease for the longest time, which Alice was saying, which is a disease that originates in animals, then goes on to infect humans. And we've seen these before, like that time that I had a rampant desire for sugar puffs, which I caught off the honey monster. And there was also the time I started wearing false eyelashes and acting like a slut after hanging out with a caramel bunny. These diseases have been around for a long time. So I think, I think we should focus on the true source, which is zoonotic. I don't know what pangolins do by what their vibe is. Right. I haven't seen an anthropomorphized pangolin. So yeah. I need to know,
It's going to be a hard sell these days, I think, isn't it? The cartoon pangolin.
Then we need to rehabilitate the image of the pangolin at this point. It was a fairly blameless creature for centuries. I would say, longer than centuries, decades even.
I didn't even know what till the pandemic. I'd never even heard of a it looks like a little anteater type.
I thought it was a musical instrument in the 16th century, I think, wasn't it?
I heard it was on the White album. I heard they played pangolin on the White album.
Look, it's a very cute animal. And I refuse to believe that it is a vector of disease, because Disney cartoons have taught me that anything that is bad is also, mean-looking, but in a sexy way. Pangolins are neither mean-looking nor sexy-looking.
Brexit food disaster news now, and this could be, amongst all the divisions caused by Brexit. It's possible that this story could be the one that really sunders the United Kingdom into fragments around the world and finally breaks any hope of a harmonious relationship we have with Europe. Custard cream biscuits have become unavailable in parts of the EU due to Brexit customs regulations. I'm sorry to any Bugle listeners to whom I'm breaking this news. We'll try and deal with this very difficult topic as sensitively as we possibly can. Alice, I mean, you bring an objective view from the Southern Hemisphere, and as a published author on the history of British biscuitry. Just let us. Fundamentally, British supermarkets that have stores in Europe have had supply problems with goods such as whiskey and custard cream, which are the big two for British expats in Europe. Most British expats in Europe live on only whiskey and custard creams. What are the implications here? Is there any hope?
My favourite bit about this was in a Daily Mail article in which a shop assistant called Tracy Smith was quoted, and what she said was, digestive biscuits are missing, popcorn is missing, Walker's shortbreads are missing, oatcakes are missing. She has just described the list of the most blandy, Anglo, carby, like all of those things are just mildly different textures of exactly the same thing. Like everything in Anglo cooking other than pie, and that's just the same thing with a squishy middle. Like,
it's beige food. We love beige food, Alice. What's your beef?
It's just making rusks valid for adults, essentially.
I refuse to believe that anyone can tell the difference between any of these foods.
This is a really crummy story, Andy.
I can't complain about that, I guess.
Oh, snap.
But I mean, that is the test of, whether you are true Brit, is if you can tell the difference between, entirely bland, flavourless biscuits. It's like princesses sleeping on 50 mattresses can feel a pea on the bottom one, can't they? It's the same with British. The can you eat an oatcake?
Scones are gone as well.
Oh,
but can we stop pretending we actually give a shit about scones when the real issue is whether you put jam or cream first, and everyone knows it's jam first, otherwise you're a heathen. Right. Like, we like arguing about that more, I think, than we enjoy eating the scones themselves. You can shake your head at me, Christopher, and say that you do cream first, but yeah, I say...
I do. I bloody do.
You're a degenerate...
I put them on in vertical stripes and then eat the scone sideways. Is that...
It's good compromise. Good compromise. I mean, there's enough division in this country as it is, Tiff, without deepening these. I mean, the custard cream, though. I mean, it's not just any biscuit. This is, the most British of all bits. It's the bit that suckled King Arthur himself, the nibble wherewith St George distracted the mighty dragon before slaying it with a chocolate hobnob. It's the sweet, crunchy treat that nourished the mighty Picts as they fought off the Martian invasion of 93 BC. Not sure if that's public domain yet. It's the snacksome delight that gave Churchill hope that the war could be won in the dark days of 1940, and he ate a custard cream and thought, if the two biscuits involved in a custard cream can sandwich the creamy bit so well, then maybe Germany too could be held in from both the west and the east. So, I mean, it is a historic biscuit. Not just for Britain, for Europe, and now, as a result of Brexit, there's a custard creamless void in the life of the continent.
Well, the torture never ends. I mean, personally, I hate custard creams, but I want to, complain about something. It's my British right to complain about someone in another country not getting something British, even if I don't like to eat it.
And it goes beyond biscuits as well. There's been huge issues with the export of shellfish from Britain. One owner of a shellfish shop in Britain that's had to close down said that dealing with new Brexit paperwork and declarations was like, quotes, playing Russian roulette with 5 bullets in your gun. Which I don't know, it might be 5 times as exciting. I don't know. I've never really tried it with 1 bullet in a gun. You could also have had, rather than if you're not onto the Russian roulette with 5 bullets in your gun, you could have also had it was like playing water polo in a tank full of sharks while smeared in seal flavoured ketchup, like playing snooker in a helicopter during a big hurricane, like playing tonsil tennis with a T-Rex, like playing Monopoly with Jeff Bezos, or final option is like playing rugby union. I mean, it's that level of confusion and chaos that.
Did the shellfish come in giving it all that? You won't be able to hear that joke.
That was a very visual joke for a podcast.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, if this goes online, that will absolutely smash. There's going to be problems with cockles and winkles and bivalve mollusks. It doesn't sound particularly appetising when you refer to it as a bivalve mollusk. It would be like referring to like lamb as like a beating heart with some connective tissue surrounded by flesh. Like, because I don't eat shellfish. That's just a personal thing because now they make me very sick. But I've had to come up with this new rule for a lot of that kind of mollusky shellfish stuff. Basically, if it's been clinging to a rock in the Mediterranean, don't put it in your mouth. You know, shellfish, Cristiano Ronaldo, whatever. If it's, I can't have them. But cockles and winkles, I used to enjoy as a child. These all feel like Cockney foods to me, so I don't understand how we're getting them. Like cockles and winkles and jellyfish are like the top three.
Jellyfish.
Like Cockney.
Jellyfish.
Jelly deals. Yeah. Jelly deal.
You meant jellied fish, as in fish that's been put in aspic, rather than actual jellyfish.
No, did I say jellyfish?
Yeah.
Jelly deals. Jellyfish. I've gone mad. It's been so long since I've been to a Cockney party because there's been no parties where we have jellyfish. That was Scottish boyfriend explains a Hing's entrance into the world of the Cockney was my godfather's 75th birthday, and he walked in and went, "What is that noise?" And I was like, "Oh, that is the sound of Cockneys slurping jelly deal off the bone." What a delicious, it's a snake chopped up and shoved in lube and served at a party while you listen to Chaz and Dave.
It's a British delicacy.
It is. If we do food so well, Alice, I can't believe after everything, after like the knowledge of jelly deals, that you would dare say that we like beige food.
I mean, you clearly only like beige food because it's the only thing that isn't like actively disgusting.
Yeah, it's the only thing
must be delicious, I guess.
Yeah. In fact, when Paul and I got engaged, we had a picture of haggis and jelly deal as our engagement, sort of bringing together both our disgusting foodstuffs.
Who says romance is dead? So, yes, in summary, it turns out that she sells seashells on the seashore because she hasn't got the correct paperwork to sell seafood to Spanish restaurants anymore. Yoga conspiracy theory news now, and yoga, I don't know what it is. Well, it's not a sport, so... Well, it looks like it should be a sport,
it's a spiritual sport. It's
it's a training sport. It could evolve into a sport, couldn't it? It's like, you know, it's like a fish climbing out of the sea. One day it will be a fully fledged sport. It's been rocked to its core by conspiracy theories, apparently.
Yes, these people are not just stretching the bounds of the physical capacity of the human body to bend, they are stretching the bounds of the human imagination to encompass really stupid ideas. Now, I'm not going to suggest that believing in access to spiritual enlightenment via stretching is maybe a precursor to some sort of gullible willingness to swallow any garbage theory that floats your way. I was brought up Buddhist, and I strongly believe the only way to escape from the inevitable suffering cycle of life is to be very aware of your breathing. But A, there's science to support my belief, and B, these people are very strange. I will say that there is a sort of a type of person who might be drawn to yoga who is willing to swallow a litre of salt water first thing in the morning so they can then uncontrollably cleanse their bowels like that's a good thing. And if you're willing to do that, you might also swallow some other theories that will inevitably lead to an explosion of shit.
It's worrying to me, guys. I'm a big fan of the yoga. I've been doing yoga with Adrian during lockdown. Actually, Paul and I did a session together, and in the middle of one of our yoga sessions, I let rip with a massive fart. And then 2 seconds later on screen, Adrian said, "Just breathe in deep and notice the quality of the air around you." And then we had to stop because I destroyed yoga and everything about it. But QAnon has found its way into the wellness community, I think. Is that the kind of news that we're talking about here? They're calling it Pastel Q. That's what they're calling it. So the wellness community getting involved with the QAnon.
Well, it's a similar thing because you start with like quite obvious things, like you don't want to see children getting molested by underground tunnel gangs of powerful billionaires. Like no one's going to say that they want that. So that you've got a little in. And equally, who doesn't want to be able to walk up a set of stairs with full motion in their knees? You know, you start small and then they build you up to, you know, trying to breathe through your sphincter. Like, this is...
I haven't reached sphincter breathing nirvana yet, but I'm hoping to one day.
I'm learning a lot about yoga here.
Well, a few of the gurus have apparently posted, so they've posted like QAnon stuff and coronavirus hoax stuff, but they're mixing it with wellness. So what you're seeing is someone putting a picture of the sky with like, coronavirus is a hoax, don't wear a mask. And I just like the idea of conspiracy mixed with vaguely inspirational pictures, you know, like a picture of someone in the lotus position with Hillary's emails just written underneath in like a really beautiful cursive font, or a picture of a tree with Pizzagate is real written on leaves underneath. And now I've said that, someone is going to do that.
Only true love can melt a hard heart, but jet fuel cannot melt steel beams.
Unstoppable decay of American democratic heritage news now, and, well, we had to come to this eventually, but Donald Trump is a free man. He has been unconvicted on a 43-57 minority not guilty verdict. So he's off the hook. Lifted off the hook by his friends, the hook on which he had dived stomach first while screaming, "Look at me, I'm impaling myself on the hook." Innocent of all charge. It does help when you don't need a majority to convict you, and you can talk to the jurors during the case. So he is still... Yeah, that's it. I mean, he's still clinging on for dear life as we speak to his spot in the top 50 greatest American presidents of all time list. And it's been a disappointing sequel, as sequels so often are. The impeachment 2. This time it's belated and ineffective. It's been a very curious thing to follow as an outside spectator, and the structures of American democracy that seem just absolutely geared towards failure on as many possible levels as they can imagine.
I was watching this trial, and what's that thing where you know how something's going to turn out? Like, you know how it's going to turn out, but you're also surprisingly disappointed when it does turn out that way. Life? Is that it?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I mean, everyone knew that the Republicans were not going to pull the ripcord on Trump, because the ripcord here was also the umbilical cord to the sweet, sweet votes of all the deliciously delusional Southern secessionists come, is it ironic Nazi cosplayers / Reddit militiamen with a hard-on for the idea that the only way to achieve democracy is by violent revolution in an America where that already happened 200 years ago. I don't know, Andy. I'm disappointed because I think I've watched too many Mighty Ducks movies to not secretly hope the underdog will pull through. And the fact that in this scenario, the underdog is facts and law is deeply depressing.
That's not so much an underdog as an underpuppy that's been drowned in a canal at birth.
I mean, could they at least have pretended that they were doing a trial? I think that's what was so upsetting to me about it, that half of them were so obviously ignoring all of the evidence from the other side, and it was just so... Ted Cruz got in trouble for tweeting about breast milk during the impeachment trial. Did you follow that story?
Well, it was... Yes, he tweeted Orwellian, the words breast milk are now forbidden because science, referring to a story from, as is so often the way with stories such as this, taken wildly out of context by the anti-woke media from a hospital in Brighton that's attempting to introduce trans-inclusive language to its maternity services. And it would be Orwellian if it were true. But it's not true, so it isn't. But Ted Cruz was having none of that. It's the latest... opening of the culture wars, but I guess the point was, should he have been tweeting about breast milk whilst ostensibly attempting to be an impartial juror, essentially, in the trial of his friend? I mean, it might even be peak America, the Ted Cruz breast milk tweet.
The heart wants what the heart wants. And sometimes Ted has just got to speak freely. I like the fact that he sort of attempted to give a shit about women's bodily autonomy with it. Like, that's what his tweet was. But you're thinking about Ted Cruz, who criticised, who's been like anti-abortion all along, criticised the vasectomy bill, sort of exposing his hypocrisy on reproductive rights, when he was like, government big enough to give you everything is big enough to take everything away, literally. And it was a response. It was kind of almost like a not a trolling, but it was a response to the the legislations, I think, in Georgia. So someone had put forward a bill going, mandatory vasectomies for men over 50, and Ted Cruz got very annoyed. It was like, yeah, imagine the government interfering with your reproductive rights. That must be awful, Ted.
I am grateful to Ted Cruz's teat tweets, because sometimes, Andy, I am just too horny. And when I am, I read a story like this to protect the world from my powerful sexual energy. I mean, here is a suggestion for both the NHS and the Ted Cruz, for the left and the right, whoever. What about doctors and midwives just ask people what terms they prefer when they come in with a baby in them? I think those are the people whose business it is. And I have a hankering for my badicular nutritionizing of a hypothetical infant to be called suck blasting. And I will insist on this with all of my primary healthcare providers.
Stop bringing common sense into it, Alice. It is not welcome.
I want suck blasting. If they refuse to call it suck blasting, I will mutter quietly to myself and carry on with raising a child, because I'm in the privileged position of not having to give much of a shit. The point is, this is such a non-story that it is good when you need a quick boner killer.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's Bugle. Thank you very much for listening. There will be a short break before the next Bugle, because we're shifting back to Friday recording. So the next Bugle will be at the end of next week, recording on Friday the 26th. So it'll be available on Saturday the 27th. We have a live show to plug, 27th of March at 8 p.m. UK time. It's a ticketed live show. Go to thebuglepodcast.com and click the live button, or look for it on the internet. However, to fill that gap between now and the next Bugle at the end of next week, there is episode 1 of The Gargle with Alice Fraser. Alice, tell us about this landmark moment in the history of human broadcasting.
Well, for every satirical political news show, there is a show that is also about the news, but not about the politics. And by for everyone, I mean just for this one, I think, just for the Bugle. This is the Saturday magazine pull-out section of the Bugle. We're going to talk about arts, we're going to talk about culture, we're going to talk about technology, probably dinosaurs, who knows? But we're going to have a grand old time. You may see some familiar voices floating into your ear holes, or hear them, or whatever, however you perceive voices, and some new ones as well. And it'll be coming out weekly, starting in this little gap.
Find it on the internet, or wherever you usually get your podcasts, or in the show notes for this, apparently, says Chris. Some technical term. So there it is. Coming soon to the inside of your skull. Tiff, any shows to plug?
Yes, I have a show on the 19th. So this Friday, for any American listeners, because... look, I could have done what Mike Birbiglia did and put it on in the afternoon in America so that people in the evening could listen to it in London, but that would require pre-planning, and I don't have any of that. So it's 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time on the 19th. Tickets are from $10, and I think free for healthcare workers. They give a bunch of free tickets away. So please come, please buy some tickets, and it's a new hour I'm working, and that's on Friday.
Great. Thanks for that. We'll be back at the end of next week. In the meantime, do listen to The Gargle. Goodbye.